Hello everyone, this is Cosmic Kitsuname here, and I'm making this video as a tribute to Coolio, as well as many of the other legends that we've lost over the years. And I've also made this because I wanted to talk about something that I felt was very important to mention. When I woke up and I was flipping through the different channels, thinking there was going to be some type of respect being paid or maybe credit being due. Well, I'm not going to say I was surprised, but this seems to be the general culture we live in now, and I can't stand it. Because whether you like or dislike somebody, there's there's just a line people should strive not to cross. Granted, if you don't like somebody in life, don't pretend like you somehow magically care about them afterwards. But still, I put in the link description box someone that goes into better detail than I ever could about the matter of Coolio, because for me and many others, he was most well known for the song Gangsta Paradise. And that was the first song that I have heard when I first heard of him. And even though the man did many other things, there are those that either won't mention it or will use his passing in the same way they've attempted to use many others in order to try to punch in order to go up. And it's even worse when someone doesn't have that type of notoriety, attempting to punch down when they can't. You know, there are a lot of people who inspire others through their work or art, and even if you get an entirely different message from that, at the very least, you took the time to listen, which is rare nowadays. When I was younger, whenever I was angry or sad, I always had my music, and to this day it remains a very big part of my life. I think about what life could have been like for me if I didn't have that music or that outlet. Now, there are many hobbies and outlets people can have, but the important thing is to have something that's actually positive. And as I get older, I sometimes laugh to myself because there are those that think they can bring about great change just solely to punching down or trying to kick someone off the ladder. And that might work in some occasions, but you can't live that way. Doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, is the definition of insanity. And there are those that get caught up in that. I've encountered people that will get mad and say, oh, the younger generation's just not getting it. They're just not getting it. Just always, just practically foaming at the mouth about this. And then they get mad when I tell them, you know, when we were younger, do you think you would have responded well to that? And then they get quiet. or more angry, depending on who you're talking to. They'll tell you that things are changing and moving along when they're not. They're only getting worse in that regards. One of the reasons that a lot of us when we were teenagers listened to music as much as we did was because we wanted something to relate to. Nowadays you have people that'll watch, stuff like Scandal and all this other stuff, and they'll try to live that. They'll try to live their life as if it was a sitcom, and that's not cool. A person should pay respects when they can, especially when someone is no longer here, because it's just a decent thing to do. But you can't always expect everyone to be decent. There are a lot of people that want to blame solely just schools and what's necessarily taught. And that's a factor, but it barely scratches the surface of how someone learns. If you have good or decent values, then it won't too much matter where you go, because you'll take those with you. All forms of discipline start in the home. And if you're not getting enough of that there, or any at all, you will seek other places to get that. And one could say the same for even bad values or things taught that aren't going to be helpful, because when you don't know, you don't know. If you're not willing to at least give a moment to know that you're not going to. Same applies to the music that people listen to and why it's being listened to in the first place. Because even if you can't fully relate to something, just the act of being able to relate a little can go a long way. So for that, I'm thankful, even for the few opportunities that I've been given in my life, that I've been able to make the most of them. Because that is what it's really about. So anyway, I'd like to thank everyone that's watched this video and say take care and peace.
When writing a story that will eventually have a one-on-one finale, there is so much building to be done that will bring out the character's fullest potential. Let ideals clash, show different approaches towards life, because that is what makes some of the best work possible. Duality. Duality is everything. Our days are dealing with the intricacies in the middle. Art has gone about showing us the many beautiful examples of it, and here we'll be going over an animated one. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is chock full of this, but you've already seen the title. Giorno Giovanna and Diavolo have this excellent execution that sets them up to have this great one-on-one in terms of ideals. That leads up to them having this high contrast in multiple areas. The first example is one of their approaches towards the evolution of their character. There are multiple ways to go about bettering flaws and problems with life itself. However, these two have approaches that directly oppose each other. Giorno's philosophy is one of growing. Each experience he goes through is one that'll contribute towards his development as a person. Even if he had failed in areas due to human error, he takes the means of learning from these mistakes to better himself. To him, growing is not about going back to mistakes to try to clear the errors of the past. It's the errors of the past that contributes towards growth. For example, look to the White Album fight. Giorno had messed up multiple times. It was because of Mista guiding him with his resolve that he had realized the stance he was taking on trying to hold control that he does not have does not need to happen. With the help of Mista, he was able to move forward. Progress. As for Diavolo, he believes that his past is something to be destroyed. He believes the past is something that can come back to haunt the future if the person has not gone about destroying it. Rather than outright confronting his problems, he has worked in this extremely secretive fashion to go about covering it up. He thought that being this secretive would give less room for error, but there was always a path for error to follow through. By being as secretive as he was, he had given his enemies initiative and a direction to go about defeating him, which they did. By trying to avoid his problems and living in fear of them, his problems had come to take care of him directly. Every one of them. Next is how the characters function in battle and against enemies in general. To preface this with a comparison, Giorno in battle is an actual fighter. He contests with intelligence, abilities, and strength. Diavolo is more so of an ambush predator. He waits for his win condition. He takes it when he can, and flees when he's unable to. Either approach is usually okay, but how they act towards the battle is what's vital in closing it out. Giorno goes about his battles in somewhat of an honorable way as he tries to break down his opponents and tries to figure out where he can win. Diavolo hides out and waits for his area to strike, and when he gets it, be sure to expect some monologuing. Diavolo talks down to his enemies regardless of his position in battle, as opposed to how Giorno talks to his enemies. For example, Giorno vs. Cioccolata. Giorno had not said anything towards Cioccolata about anything until his win condition was in the works. Cioccolata had spent the whole battle talking down to Giorno and trying to catch his fear and despair on camera. It wasn't until Giorno securing his win that he said something about how much he detests Cioccolata. With Diavolo's case, his fight versus Bruno is a great example. Diavolo's respect that he had for Bruno had dissipated because of the decision Bruno had made with defending Trish. So throughout the battle, he spent his time talking down to Bruno. Notice how his prideful demeanor cracks when Bruno just shows his ability to read his attacks. Even when he had gotten exposed, when Bruno had made the read using the stairs, Diavolo had cracked and then tried to put himself back on top of the fight. Then, Bruno makes that final read and annihilates Diavolo's mental fortitude. Diavolo is both figuratively and literally left standing. Broken like the broken man that he is. Also, to support the idea that Diavolo fights similarly to a hyena, we can refer to the risotto fight. He had got outclassed so bad. He had resorted to using his enemies as a secret weapon. He had even had talks about how desperate that is as an attack, but did it because a win is a win to him. Consider that, and that he tries to talk down to Risotto and bargain with him right after. That is such a disrespectful sentence by such a disrespectful man. I love this example because it transcends battle. Diavolo already doesn't believe in respecting people that aren't directly working for him, and that respect isn't exactly respect in the first place. The relationship is one slight disagreement away from the person potentially dying. Meanwhile, Giorno gives everyone a well amount of respect until they give him a valid reason for him not to. And for a third example, repetition. Both Giorno and Diavolo have a stance on repetition that actively impacts their life and the decisions that they make. Giorno is vocally against repetition when it comes to conversations. If he has to repeat himself more than once, it annoys him. Why? Well, when we look to Giorno's character, how much communication matters in his life, it makes sense. Having to repeat yourself means the conversation is not progressing, it's stagnating. That goes past conversations. For example, look at when Giorno was trying to warn Mista about Sale. Imagine if he had continued to try to get to Mista by yelling rather than think about a different way to get to him. He would be stagnating the mission and effectively failing it altogether. Repetition is a lack of progress in ways like this. This is why Giorno has such a distaste for it. If you're continuing to do something that's not working, it's best to change your methods. Otherwise, it's insanity. Or in Giorno's words, stupidity. Diavolo, on the other hand, is an unintentional advocate for repetition. By destroying his past, he is unable to learn from his mistakes, which, in turn, creates repetition for the problems that he faces because he has not learned how to defeat them. Diavolo's methods towards problems in his life are his Everstone. It's the reason he has this inability to evolve. To add another example of this while also simultaneously patting myself on the back, look to when Diavolo had chosen not to run away. When this had happened, he was praising himself and his decision because it looked like it had paid off. He had said, "It was a good thing I didn't run away" 3 times. This scene describes Diavolo and his life experiences with the slightest of ease. When it looks like everything has worked out for Diavolo, he praises himself and then he goes about his life. If it looked like it worked for him, that's enough to get it done. If it looks like it had failed and it tries to combat him immediately, then he can potentially King Crimson it. That's what happened with Bruno, that is what happened with Polnareff, and here it's what happened with Giorno. And guess what? It didn't work out in any of them, except for Risotto. It worked against him. He has repetitive methods that don't work all of the time. It's like a gimmick in a fighting game. Works on those that can't combat it, and for sure does not work on those that can. In conclusion, the way these two differ has such an engaging and developed execution. It's an opinion, but I believe that the evidence I've provided should at least give ground for this to stand on. Giorno and Diavolo have such a good hero and villain dynamic going on that it's been labbed with to just have these intricacies that it does. I hope to go over more of it in a later video. I expect it'll be more in the symbolism department than character here.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. Cause I've been blasting and laughing so long that even my mama thinks that my mind is gone. But I ain't never crossed a man that didn't deserve it. Me be treated like a punk, you know that's unheard of. You better watch how you're talking and where you're walking, or you and your homies might be lined in chalk. I really hate the trip, but I gotta low. As they croak, I see myself in the pistol smoke. Fool, I'm the kind of G the little homies wanna be like, on my knees in the night, saying prayers in the street light. Been staying most of the lives, living in the gangster's paradise. We've been spending most of the lives, living in the gangster's paradise. We keep spending most of our lives, living in the gangster's paradise. We keep spending most of our lives. Look at the situation they got me facing. I can't live a normal life. I was raised by the state, so I gotta be down with the hood team. Too much television watching got me chasing dreams. I'm an educated fool with money on my mind. Got my 10 in my hand and a gleam in my eye. I'm a loped out gangster, set tripping banker, and my homies is down, so don't arouse my anger. Fool, death ain't nothing but a heartbeat away. I'm living life, do or die. What can I say? I'm 23 now, but will I live to see 24? The way things is going, I don't know. Tell me why are we so blind to see that the ones we hurt are you and me? We've been spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. We've been spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. We keep spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. We keep spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. Power and the money and the power. Minute after minute, hour after hour, everybody's running, but half of them ain't looking what's going on in the kitchen. But I don't know what's cooking. They say I got to learn, but nobody's here to teach me. If they can't understand it, how can they reach me? I guess they can't, I guess they won't, I guess they front. That's why I know my life is out of luck, fool. Been spending most of